All right, friends, welcome to Advent Week 3. We are translating through the passages as prescribed in the Revised Common Lectionary. The Old Testament prophetic passage corresponding with a Gospels text as well. So that's typically been, or so far it's been, a passage from Isaiah looking ahead to a time when things are different, when it's a glorious day. The passage today is going to talk about basically refreshing and joy in the wilderness. And so we're going to read that from the LXX. And then a corresponding passage in Matthew that's talking about Jesus and what Jesus is doing in his mission, that sort of thing. So as we await the coming of Jesus at Christmas, it's been fun to translate through some of these. Now remember, we're translating the LXX, the Septuagint here in the Old Testament. And if you're used to translating Koine Greek in the New Testament and the Gospels and that sort of thing, this is going to seem harder. The vocabulary is tougher, and so that's why we do it together, right? But it's interesting to look and see how these are constructed. And let's go ahead and give this a go here, Isaiah chapter 35, verses 1 through 10, and then we will switch over to Matthew here in a little bit. Okay, so verse 1 here. Euphrantheti, aremas, dipsosa, agaliasto, aremas kai antheto hos krinon. Okay. Rejoice, thirsty wilderness. Let the wilderness be glad. Okay. See how that's a third person imperative. Let the wilderness be glad. And let it blossom. Again, that tho, that's the middle ending, and to. Here's the that third person singular imperative. Remember, Greek can do that, give imperatives in a third person. We usually translate those as let, right? So, and let it blossom as a krinon, as a lily. Okay, let the wilderness blossom as a lily. Verse 2, here we go, it's a little bit longer. Kai exanthese, kai agaliasatai ta arema tu Iordanu, kai hedaxa tu Libanu edathe aute, kai he time tu Carmelu, kai halaas mu opsatai tain daxan kuriu, kai ta hupsas tu theu. So, and the wilderness of Jordan, okay, this is going to be our subject, and the wilderness of Jordan blossom or put forth flowers, and be glad, rejoice, okay? So let the wilderness of Jordan blossom and rejoice, and the glory of Lebanon be given to it, and the honor of Carmel. And my people will see the glory of the Lord and the height of God, or the loftiness of God, something like that. Hupsas, okay? The highness, the loftiness of God. Verse 3. Iskusate keres anemanai kai ganata paralelumena. Short little verse there, 3. Be strong, feeble hands, and weakened or even maybe disabled and weak knees. Okay? Be strong, feeble hands, and weak knees. Okay? Those of us getting older can understand that idea. Verse 4. Parakalesate hoi aligapsukoi te dianoia iskusate me fabeste idu ha theas hemon chrisen antapadidosen kai antapadose autas hexe kai sose hemas. Comfort the discouraged in mind, Give comfort to the ones who are discouraged in their minds or in mind. Okay. Be strong and do not fear. Behold, our God is making judgments and will repay. He will come and save us. Verse 5. Tati anoik thesantai, ophthalmoi tuflon, kai ota kophon akusantai. Then the eyes of the blind will be opened, and the ears of the deaf will hear. Verse 6. Tate aletai hos alaphas hakolas kai trane estai glossa magilalon hati erage en te eremo hudor kai pharax en ge dipsose. Then the crippled or the lame will leap as a deer, and the tongue of the mute will be clear, because water has broken forth in the wilderness, and a cleft or a valley, something like that, parallel with water, maybe like a gully or an oasis, something like that. A gully in a thirsty land, something like that. Verse 7. Kai he anudras estai eis hele, kai eis tain dipsosan gain pege hudatas estai, eke euphrasune or neon epalis kalamu kai hele. 7. And the dry place will be as a marsh, and water will be, a spring of water will be to the thirsty land. There, joy of birds, assume the will be is in there, right? There will be the joy of birds, a house of reeds, and meadow or marsh. Okay, it's that same word we saw up there, right? Like a lush, well-watered land contrasted with wilderness here is the idea. Okay? Verse 8. Eke estai hadas kathara kai hadas hagia klethesatai kai ume parelthe eke akathartas ude estai eke hadas akathartas hoi de dies parmenoi parusantai ep autes kai u me planethosin. All right, that was kind of a long one. There will be a clean or pure way, okay? There will be a pure way, and a way will be called holy. And it will be called a holy way. And surely there will not, the unclean surely will not pass there, nor will an unclean way be there, future here, nor will there be an unclean way there. But the ones who were scattered will go upon it, and surely they will not wander. Okay? Verse 9. Kai uk estai ake leon ude ton therion ton paneron ume anabe ep autain ude me hurethe ake ala perusantai en aute lelutromenoi. Okay, verse 9. And there will not be there a lion, there will be no lion there, nor wild animals or beasts, something like that, of evil, surely will not go up upon it, nor will they be found there. But the ones who have been redeemed will proceed on it. Okay? The special way just for the redeemed folks. Okay? The clean, the pure way. Verse 10. Kai sunegmnoi dia kurion apostrophe santai kai hexusen eis sion met euphrasunes kai euphrasune ionias huper kephales auton epigar kephales auton inesis kai agaliama kai euphrasune katalemsetai autus apedra adune kai lupe kai stenagmas. All right, that was kind of a long one to end on there. And the ones gathered together on account of the Lord shall return and be present in Zion with joy, and joy eternal, or an eternal joy upon their heads, okay? For upon their heads, praise and gladness. Some sort of a verb is assumed there. Shall be. Upon their heads shall be praise and gladness. And joy will take hold of them. Pain and sorrow and groaning have fled away, have escaped, have abandoned, have run away. Okay? So this is quite the picture of a future idea here there, right? Where, joy, eternal joy is upon their heads. You think about this being spoken to a people who are, facing, exile, facing extinction, all that kind of stuff. This vision ahead to this messianic age where the Messiah brings this sort of thing. It's a beautiful picture. So that's our reading in Isaiah. Let's go ahead and flip over to Matthew. All right, so here's our Matthew passage, Matthew 11, 2 through 11. And let's go ahead and pick it up here, verse 2. Ha de Ioannes ekusas ein to desmoterio ta erga tu Christu pempsas diaton matheton autou. And John, hearing in prison, or when John heard in prison the works of Christ, he sent through his disciples, verse 3, Apen auto su e ha erkamenas e heteron prostakomen, kai apokrithes ha Iesus apen autois, paruthentes apangelate Ioanne ha akuete kai blapete. I actually read 2 verses there. That's okay. Verses 3 and 4. So he sent word through his disciples. He said to him, interesting, a little bit interesting with the persons and numbers here, right? So we've got John speaking to multiple disciples, and he said to singular here, to him or to it, apparently the disciple that's going to be the spokesperson, or to Jesus. You could think that it's the disciple saying to Jesus, but this is a third person singular. So anyway, just kind of an interesting way that plays itself out there, right? You are, or there's going to be a question. So are you the one coming, or the one who is to come, or another? Should we look for another? Are you the one who is to come, or shall we look for another? Okay. And then I read the next verse too. And Jesus answered, said to them, actually, to the disciples, go report to John that which, relative pronoun, which you hear and you see. Go tell him what you hear and you see. Verse 5. Tufloi anablepusin kai koloi peripatusin leproi katharizantai kai kofoi akuusin kai necroi egerantai kai patokoi euangelidzantai. Okay? So this is Jesus' response. Go and tell him what you see. Blind receive sight, and lame walk or are walking. Lepers are cleansed, and deaf hear. Once again, could be are hearing, and the deaf are hearing, and dead people or dead ones are raised, and poor, interesting here, are preached. Usually we would say, and the good news is preached to the poor, which is probably best. But notice how we've got subject here. Good news, the poor are being preached to, essentially, I guess is what it is, because we've got the passive verb there. The poor are being preached to. That's his report. And notice lots of the imagery that we've seen in Isaiah so far about that future messianic time, right? Had a lot of this kind of stuff, right? The lame walking, blind seeing, joy overflowing, water in the desert, all that kind of stuff, right? Verse 6. Kai makarias esten has ean me scandalisthe en emoi. And blessed is whom or whoever does not fall away or is not tempted or does not stumble on account of me. Okay. Verse 7. Tuton de pariwamenon erxata ha Jesus legain tois aklois peri ioannou ti ex elthate eis tain eremon theasastai kalaman hupa anemu saluamanon. All right. But as they were walking, as those guys were walking, these guys were walking, Jesus began to say to the crowd, speak to the crowd about John or concerning John. Okay? So the disciples are walking away. Jesus turns to the crowd that's there, and he begins to comment on John. What did you go out into the desert to see? This is the humorous side of Jesus here. I think this is really interesting. What did you go out into the desert to see? A reed being swayed or being shaken by the wind? Okay. Did you go out in the desert to see a reed swayed by the wind? What we know about John the Baptist, he was a fiery, loud preacher dude who called out Herod, called out the Pharisees and the Sadducees and those sorts of people. He was not like some, chill hippie kind of dude that didn't want to cause any trouble, right? So he's the opposite of like a go with the flow, reed swayed by the wind. He is a fiery, prophetic kind of dude, right? So, why'd you go out to see John? Was it because he was so chill and well-adjusted and well-behaved? The answer is obviously not, right? Again, Jesus is being kind of humorous here, right? Verse 8. Alati exethate idain, anthropon en malakois, aim facemenon, idu hoi ta malaka faruntes en tois oikois, ton basileon asen. Once again, but what did you go out to see? A man in fine clothing, a man dressed in fine or wealthy clothing. Remember, John wears a garment of camel hair with a leather belt around his waist, right? He's the least regal guy you're going to meet. I mean, he lives in the wilderness. He eats locusts and wild honey. Oh, why did you guys go out and see John? Was it because he was so well dressed? Was it because he smelled so good? Right? That's kind of what Jesus is doing. Again, just kind of being humorous here, like pointing out the irony of John, and yet we'll see where this goes. Behold, the ones wearing fine clothes are in the houses of kings, right? Are in the homes of kings. Okay. Verse 9. Alati ex elthate edain. Prophetain? Nai, lego humin kai perisateron prophetu. Again, but what did you go out to see? A prophet? Yes, I say to you, and more, over and above, greater than a prophet, right? You were attracted to John. And remember what it says about John, that all of the countryside of Judea and all of Jerusalem went out to the desert in John. They confessed their sins and they were baptized by him. Now, could be maybe a bit of an exaggeration. Is that every single person? Perhaps not. But it had a major effect. John the Baptist is a huge deal in the first century, right? Remember, he's also like the most humble guy in the world because he has no problem stepping aside for Jesus, right? Does not claim to be the Christ, does not want that attention, quickly says no. He says, I just came to prepare the way. You think my ministry is good. Wait till you see the guy that's coming after me, right? He'll say, he must become greater, I must become less. When two of John's disciples are there with him, he says, behold the Son of God who takes away the sin of the world, to Jesus. And the disciples, follow Jesus, and John's apparently cool with that, right? It's almost like I see John as having this kind of attitude of like, hey, why are you guys still hanging out with me? The Messiah is here. Go hang out with him, right? Now remember, John gets arrested and is in jail for like a year and then loses his head. It's fun to think about what would have happened if he didn't get arrested. Would he have traveled around with Jesus? Would he have gone ahead of Jesus wherever Jesus was going and prepared the way? Maybe like a literal preparer? Anyway, it's just kind of interesting. But Jesus is saying here, he's kind of making these jokes. Oh, did you go see John because he dressed so nice and had really fine clothes? No. You went out because he was a prophet. But he was more than a prophet, guys. He's talking John up here a little bit, right? Verse 10. Hutas eisen peri hu gegraptai, edu ego apostello ton angelon mu prasopusu, has kataskuase tain hadan su and prosthen su. This is about whom it has been written, behold, I send my messenger. Could be angel too, but John's not an angel. He's just a messenger. At least, we think of a certain thing, we think angel. Behold, I send my messenger before you, or before your face, whom will prepare your way or your path before you. Okay. One final verse here, verse 11. Amen legohumin uk agegertai en genetois gunaikos maidzon ioannou tu baptistu. Ha de makrateras en te basileia ton uranon maidzon autu esten. Truly I say to you, none born of women rise up greater than John. That's a little bit weird. John the Baptist, rather. That's a little weird way to say it, right? But like basically none of those born of women are greater than John the Baptist, right? Like John is in a class of his own. He's special. But the least in the kingdom of heaven is greater than him. Okay? So saying a profound statement about John. First of all, Jesus' talking about the credibility of his messiahship is the fact that the oppressed are set free, the lame walk, the deaf hear, the blind receive sight, right? That's his answer to John the Baptist. The fulfillment of so many of these Isaiah prophecies we've been looking at about this messianic age, where there's just this massive release from bondage that's going on, right? That's the sources. Those are the sources that he cites. That's his resume that he cites. But then talks about John in these really interesting kind of ways. And this is just I think a powerful verse for me. You may have heard me say before this analogy that I think John the Baptist is like Scottie Pippen. Okay, Scottie Pippen, a great basketball player for the Bulls in the 90s in his own right, was an original Dream Teamer, is in the Hall of Fame. Scottie Pippen gets overshadowed because he played with the greatest of all time. He played with Michael Jordan, right? John the Baptist is kind of the same way. John the Baptist is an amazing minister calling people to repent, to be baptized, and they do it, right? If Michael Jordan had never, played basketball, we would remember the 90s Bulls as the era of Scottie Pippen rather than the era of Michael Jordan, right? In a similar way, if there had been no Jesus in the first century, I know that's not the case, and heaven forbid, right? But if there hadn't been, perhaps John would have been the first century Judaism would have been the era of John the Baptist. Of course he ends up getting arrested and killed pretty quickly, but John the Baptist is legit, and here we see from prison sending his disciples to ask about John. Should we wait for another? And Jesus cites the fulfillment of many of these prophecies from Isaiah that we've been seeing. All right, friends, God bless. Merry Christmas. We'll see you again soon.